On this James the Bike Guy, we're taking a look at Trek's Downcountry rocket ship for 2021. That's right, we're checking out the Trek Top Fuel 9.8 in the GX build. This is filled with all sorts of carbon parts and go fast bits to make it a rocket ship. But for 2021, it's been elongated to 120 millimeters of travel up front and 115 out back to allow the bike to get a little more rowdy. So in this video, we're going to go over the specs and features of this bike, and then finally we'll find out exactly what it weighs. So I hope you enjoy it, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. The Trek Top Fuel line used to be their XC race bike, but a couple years ago they added in another model called the Super Caliber in their XC lineup. And the Super Caliber really went gung-ho on being a cross between a hardtail and a full suspension bike by using the integrated shock in the rear, and it's really their current XC race bike. And so that left an area where they could take their Top Fuel nameplate, make it a bit more capable, but still keep the bike in a format where it would be awesome for an XC race day, but you could also take it out with your friends for a bit more trail riding. And that's where we're starting to see the category of downcountry come in. What downcountry is basically an elongated or an Evo version of an XC bike. And we'll see that here because this is a totally lightweight oriented bike, but the front end is going to have a much slacker front end. You're going to have more travel in the rear of the bike and more travel up front compared to a traditional XC bike. So a standard XC is typically 100 mils up front and 100 millimeters of suspension travel in the back. And that works out well because you'd be on smooth paths and prefer climbing performance over anything else. And this Trek Top Fuel moves those numbers to have 120 millimeters of front travel, which is what trail bikes used to be, and then 115 millimeters in the rear end of the bike. And they take that even a bit more trick because they use something called a minnow link. So essentially you can change this link here, which allows you to move the bike into a high or low position, which raises and lowers the bottom bracket, and then it changes the seat tube and the head tube angle. So this bike in a high position is going to be a 68-degree head tube angle, or in a low it's 67.5, which is very slack for this type of bike. And then for a seat tube angle, you're going to be at a 75.5 high or 75 low. What that means is that's going to put you in a good, powerful position to still be able to climb up hills, but the front end of the bike is going to be slack enough that it's going to be super fun on the descents. Now the chainstays on this bike, they've kept pretty nice and short to be 434 millimeters, which should make the bike feel real snappy by having a longer front center of the bike and shortening up the back end. When you do that, that means the bike's going to want a manual a little bit better, be able to be whipped around corners a little bit stronger as well, and should make this Top Fuel real fun to ride. The version we're checking out is their Top Fuel 9.8, and the 9 point means that this is going to be a carbon fiber frame, and one that personally I love. So this uses their OCLV mountain carbon frame, but you can see under this very thin coat of paint over the bike, you can see all the little joints, kind of how it's laid up together, and in my opinion, it's a very slick looking rig. Of course, it's going to bring carbon all the way into the back end. Yeah, check out that. You can see the carbon inside of the frame, which is so cool. And then it brings you to their ABP rear suspension. ABP means active braking pivot, so it's got a concentric bearing that the rear through axle goes through, and that allows the braking to be uninterrupted while you're riding because it's all around the centralized part of the rear axle. And then the pedaling performance is going to be very good on this bike with decent small bump compliance. The bike also is running all internal cable routing, so you can see cables go in the down tube, goes through what I believe they call their control freak cable routing. Makes for a pretty slick and nice package. Other cool things to mention, so because this is going down country, we've got a dropper post on the bike. This dropper post is pretty cool because it's being operated by this dual control lever. So the bottom lever here, that's going to control the saddle up and down. And then the top lever is actually going to be controlling the lockout on the bike. So you click it down, you can lock out the fork. You can also lock out the rear shock all in a combined lever right on the handlebar. So it's pretty neat to see all of that stuff put together. Speaking of components on the bike, we should talk about the suspension. So that front fork we keep talking about, that's 120 millimeters of travel, that's going to be the new RockShox SID Select Plus. Pretty cool fork because it's running their Debonair spring on the left-hand side of the fork, and then on the right, you're running the Charger RL damper. That's a really great damper and actually something that's run in some of their more performance, trail, and enduro forks. So it's nice to see here. Fork has a 44 millimeter offset, and then of course it's running Boost 15 by 110. Out back, you're also set up with a SID, but now with the rear shock. So this is the SID Lux Ultimate. This has the Debonair air spring. It runs the Ultimate RL damper, and it's a standard metric size with 190 by 45, so 190 millimeters in length, 45 millimeters of stroke. And you can see here, I really like that they have the numbers for the different sag ratings right on the back end. That way you can dial in the suspension super well. Going on from that, the 9.8 is available in two different varieties. It's available in a XT build, which is going to run Shimano drivetrain and brakes, or it's available in a SRAM GX build like we're checking out here. So this SRAM GX build is going to have the GX front crank. It runs this MRP chain guard, which is pretty cool to see in my opinion. And then out back, you've got the SRAM GX Lunar rear derailleur and cassette. So this cassette is their new super wide range 10 to 50 tooth range. So the 52 adds 2 more teeth in the back, makes for a 520% gear range, which is an absolutely crazy amount of gear range, but it should match up really well with a bike that should have a huge range of capabilities. Going on from that, you're going to slow the bike down using SRAM's G2 brakes. This is a 2-piston caliper. It's the second generation of their guide lineup. Has a nice progressive feel to it, not quite that on-off that you feel with some other brands. To keep the carbon theme and go along with that absolutely gorgeous frame that's on this, you're gonna have carbon wheels and handlebar. So we'll start with the handlebar. This is the Bontrager Line Pro. Carbon handlebar, 35 millimeter clamp using their Covey Pro aluminum stem, which is also blender compatible. And then connecting you to the ground is these gorgeous Covey Elite 30 wheels. This is a 30 millimeter internal carbon fiber wheel. It's got a carbon rim, and it runs the Bontrager Rapid Drive hubs, which in my opinion are some of the best hubs available with an OE wheel set. Putting traction to the ground is going to be the Bontrager XR3 Team Issue tire. This is certainly on the faster rolling side, a little less grip than some of the others, but I do like to see that it's got some side knobs, and if you live in a place where you've got some hard packed dirt, it should work out super well. So now that we've gone over some of the features and designs of this 2021 Trek Top Fuel 9.8, let's go ahead and see what it weighs. The actual weight of the Trek Top Fuel 9.8 in a size extra large comes in and weighs 26.48 pounds. Thank you for joining me to check out this 2021 Trek Top Fuel 9.8. I hope you enjoyed checking out the bike just as much as I did. I'm really curious to see what you think about it down in the comment section below. While you're at it, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you can see the next video. And don't forget to drop a like. It really lets me know that you enjoyed the video.